Hello and welcome to the Parents Guide. This is where you'll find out what's going on in schools and hear some of the key issues being discussed from the parents' point of view. If you have school-aged children, this programme is for you. We'll be focusing on creativity in primary schools with two parents, Nikki McGurr and John Preston.
Hello.
Hello.
We're also joined by education consultant Marilyn Fryer, who has a great deal of experience in primary schools.
Hello.
We've been looking at some programmes from Teachers TV and we'll be showing some extracts during our discussion. These programmes were made for teachers, but they also open up a window for parents to look into classrooms and see what's going on in schools today. We start with art, and in our first clip we visit Lauriston School in East London, where the children in Peter Sanders' Year 2 class are drawing self-portraits.
Yeah, Phoebe's just asked a really important question. She's just said, are you allowed to do necks? If you can see your neck in the mirror, do it. Because they're part of you, aren't they? Yeah, so go and do them, Phoebe, that's great. Yeah, shadow. Declan's doing some shadow here, fantastic. And put your pencils down. And put your hands on your head. I was really pleased with the way the lesson went today. I think the children worked extremely well, especially considering that they're only 3 weeks into being Year 2 children, so they're still very young. They drew for about an hour, which I think is extraordinary for such young children. And I was worried that they wouldn't spend that long drawing and that I couldn't ask them to.
They do well. Yeah. That is your one.
And I think they picked up what the whole idea of the lesson was. We were talking about tone, we were talking about line, we were talking about looking, and they really, really got everything that we talked about at the beginning of the lesson. I want you to go up and to tell us why you like a particular picture. And the first person I'd like to go up is Pels.
That one.
Why do you like that one?
The hair looks like he's one's and the glasses. And I can tell the drawing.
Fantastic. Thank you, George. That's great.
Wow. I like it because the way she done the dress, she looked really closely.
John, those children were spending an hour drawing. That seems a lot of creativity, doesn't it, by today's standards?
Yes, it certainly does, and I think there should be more of that going on in schools, giving kids the chance to express themselves.
How important do you think art is in particular, then?
Very important. It's one of the few outlets that most kids have for expressing their creativity and free thinking.
What about the children talking in the clip, Nikki? Did you think that was a useful way for them to feel more creative?
Absolutely. I think it gave them more opportunity to express their own thoughts. And what I was really impressed by that, because they were such young children, is that they'd really listened to the sort of the background to the drawing techniques at the beginning of the class, and they weren't just looking at these pictures and saying I like this because it's funny. They were actually, bringing the themes that the teacher was trying to put across in this, and they're sort of bringing that to their analysis of the pictures, and I thought that was very impressive.
And he had a very nice personal touch with the children, didn't he? I mean, how important do you think it is to children what the teacher's expectations are?
Absolutely. I think he was fantastic because he encouraged all of those children. Whenever they had an idea or a thought or a suggestion, he was very positive and very encouraging. And I think the more encouraged children feel, the more able they are to express themselves. I think you have a whole range of personality types in a classroom, and often, a timid child might feel less confident about expressing themselves. But if they're encouraged and they're made to feel good about what they're doing, that's got to be good for them.
Marilyn, my immediate instinct watching that was that he was a specialist art teacher. Did you think that, or do you think that's something any teacher could do?
He was certainly an excellent teacher. I think other teachers could do it if they thought about it very carefully and perhaps had some input from specialist teachers.
Do you think teachers are getting enough time in their training to learn about being creative and addressing the sorts of issues we're talking about today?
Well, I think it's become more of a hot topic than it used to be, but still there are a lot of teachers floundering around wanting to know a lot more about what creativity is and how it can be developed. So I think it's got to be included in teacher training in quite a major way right from the outset.
Well, this school, of course, places a great priority on art, and it's right at the heart of the whole school curriculum. I mean, as a parent, would you be concerned that that might be crowding out the standards agenda?
I could imagine that I'd be quite happy for plenty of art education within school. I think that the clip that we just saw encouraged children to think critically, and I think critical thinking is important across subject areas. So I would hope that if it was done well, that it would help augment their learning in other areas rather than teach them to be great artists and perhaps lack some of the more traditional academic skills.
John, these were quite young children, so parents might think, oh yeah, well, it's fine for them to spend an hour drawing when they're 6, but at 11, maybe feel a bit differently, do you think?
Maybe, but it could channel kids into a particular area where they can excel, and it might make parents feel differently about the skills a kid's acquired on his passage through school. It's not only about, there's a place for all the learning by rote, and the maths and the times tables and all that stuff, that equips them for, it's one of the underpinning things of moving on, for education. I won't deny that. But on the other hand, it helps to develop the child and make school a good place to be. If art has helped them to enjoy school and it gets them to school and it gets them thinking, then job done. It's a good thing.
Well, now we're going to turn to music and see a Year 1 class in Kings Hill Primary School with their teacher, Louise Harvey-Wells, and music advisory teacher for Kent, Helen McGregor. The children have been making sounds with their hands, and now they're putting them into sequences.
They're building up the idea of being able to read a piece of music, notate a piece of music, and they're ready to do it in Year 1. They could be doing exactly the same sort of activity in Year 6 with much more complex sounds, with rhythms perhaps, with melodies. But there it is already in Year 1, established. So I think she was very brave to take it on that stage, and the outcome was absolutely fantastic. The children have now produced their own musical scores which they can play, they can share, and they can perform to each other.
Matthew and Charlie. Give them a clap. How brave are they? William and Abigail. Right, ready? 1, 2, go.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Well done. Music has to be hands-on, especially for small children. So to let go is very scary for a teacher. You don't know what you're going to end up with. You could end up with a right on your hands. Which do you start off with, a pop or a clap?
Pop.
A pop. So you're going from this side. It's left-handed music here. Pop, pop, clap.
Vicky, did you think that lesson was capturing the children's imagination?
Definitely, they all seemed to be engaged by what the teacher was asking them to do, and they were all concentrating very hard. So, you could see them really focusing on the lesson.
Did you think they knew what they were supposed to be getting out of it?
Yes, I think so, because at the end they had the compositions that they'd created themselves.
It was quite complicated.
It was. Whether they all completely understood what they were doing, or I'm not sure. But I think they were certainly able to play their compositions back. I thought it was very, very good. Yeah, very stimulating.
John, what do you think? I mean, it's the sort of area that a teacher could feel really lacking in confidence in, isn't it, if they haven't got a musical background?
Yes, I think so. And To be honest, I thought it was pretty dull. I think my kids would prefer to, make noises. There was a comment made in there about the teachers saying, there's a danger of making too much noise or something like that. But noise is great. That's music. Music's instruments, drums, guitars, pianos, stuff like that. Not making noises with your hands. I can see it as a basis for teaching the structure of music, but I would favour approach of going in with the big instruments and making a noise.
Yeah, Marilyn, it had a different feel, didn't it, to the other creative art lesson, which was much more energetic and going somewhere.
It did. I mean, the children were developing building blocks to creativity, and sometimes I think it's important that they do that. So not every lesson which contributes to children's creativity has to be quite creative in itself.
I think that's an interesting point. I mean, what do we mean by creativity? It may be that in curricular terms it has a different meaning to what most parents' understanding of the word creative is.
Possibly. I think in the UK we're very hung up on the relationship between creativity and the arts, and we tend to call the arts the creative arts. We don't say the creative sciences, although there's just as much scope for being creative in science as there is in art, as there is in any subject. For me, creativity is about pushing the boundaries forward in ways which are valuable and appropriate. And in order to do that, children have to build up all sorts of skills. They have to have a body of knowledge. And as we've seen in the clips, they have to be quite excited and motivated. So all those things contribute to the children's creativity.
OK, well, now we're going to turn our attention to something very contemporary. And in the next clip, we look at computer games and their likely impact on teaching and learning. How can computer games be good for learning, let alone creativity?
Too often in the traditional school curriculum, we give kids the nuts and bolts of the subject area rather than giving them opportunities to discover them for themselves. And that process of discovery is as important and probably more important than any of the content that you're learning along the way. Ultimately, the demand is coming from the kids. Children who are using computers at home for writing, for information seeking, for gaming, want to be able to use what they know are very effective tools to support them in their learning in the classroom.
Today, educational products which draw on mainstream game design are beginning to make an impact in the classroom. Parkside Community College in Cambridge is exploring software for use largely in media education.
Is it that one? Yeah. Get ready to switch.
Working within a 3D environment, children can script and animate a drama by devising scenes and character dialogue. This Year 7 class are creating scenes that examine the issue of bullying. This software package is one of a number of products that aim to put powerful and flexible tools for learning in the hands of children. They appear to be engaged and stimulated by the control they exert within its virtual world. On the way, it's hoped that they develop teamwork skills and expand their creative writing range as they produce their first screen drama.
John, those were slightly older children, but do you feel at ease with the idea of them using sort of what look like PlayStation games in the classroom?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's responding to the world they live in, media, technology, interactive age. I think it's perfect for learning.
Wasn't there a part of you as a parent that thought they spend all their lives at home on these computers?
No, not
now
at
they're
all.
doing it in school.
It's there to be controlled like anything else, like playing too much football or doing too much of anything. So in a controlled way, I think it's perfect.
Nikki, do you think they're as valid as books and films and musical instruments?
Absolutely. I think anything that engages children and gives them a sense of control and, something that really encourages them to use their own ideas and to work as in a team, I think that seemed to work really well. I thought it was really exciting. I hadn't thought about computers in that way before. I hadn't realised that there were these tools that could be made available for, kids to do it themselves. I think thought it was really exciting.
But would you want to know more as a parent about the kind of technology and the content of the films that were being used?
I think that would be helpful, because I could understand that there might be a reaction against, students being occupied with games if people think of them in a traditional sense. I think the fact that they were, designed with an educational purpose in mind, I think that would be interesting to sort of communicate to parents. I think one of the problems there is that a lot of parents don't know what's going on in the classrooms and don't understand how students are being taught these days, and don't understand the latest drives in trying to be more creative.
Marilyn, have you got experience of these sorts of programmes being used to make children more creative?
Not those particular programmes, no. Certainly using the media in school I have experience of. But what I was particularly excited me was when the children were able to create their own dramas, and the games gave them a kind of framework to do that. The last time that creativity in education really had a field day was in the 60s, and in those days it was much more unstructured, and the children was told, here are the resources, just go and create, and many children didn't know what to do. So having that sort of framework I think is helpful.
So you're saying it's a more controlled version of what went on in the 60s?
Oh, well, it's a more structured version, but allowing plenty of creativity within that, and I think that's much more helpful to children.
But John, that phrase child-centred learning, of course, which was big in the 60s, has been big time out of fashion since then. Do you think it should come back?
The difference between now and the 60s is access to technology, and the world we live in, and the technology should be used to its fullest extent. It's what enthuses kids.
Marilyn, do you think over time this will really change the way that children learn using this sort of technology?
I don't think it'll change the way children naturally learn. I think it will enable children to learn more effectively. I mean, for me, children learn in mainly three ways. One is active learning, one is copying a model for one reason or another, and the other one is because the learning they're doing is rewarding in some way, and this is keying into certainly the active learning approach.
And do you think it's scary for some parents, Nikki, the extent to which children understand technology, which maybe their parents don't?
Maybe. I think, my experience is that, gradually we're all parents are being sort of pushed and shoved into sort of getting more familiar with technology in any case. And in a way, I think, because we are such a kind of technology-driven society, I think most of us are quite amazed and surprised and delighted at the way children can cope with these new ideas, and, put us to shame, really.
OK, well, now we're going to look at how a traditional subject can be taught in an entirely different way. We go to Crossways Junior School and Simon Botton's Year 5 history lesson. He's asked the children to imagine they are TV newsreaders reporting on the different fates of Henry VIII's wives. Here, one group have transformed the cloakroom into a makeshift studio.
Hello and welcome to the Tudor Times. It must be a record. The fourth Queen gone. Anne of Cleves divorced only 24 hours ago. Anne is weeping with her father in Hever Castle, which Henry gave her. The reason why this marriage has ended is because Henry found the picture more beautiful than Anne in reality.
Here we go. Absolutely quiet now for the first piece of news.
Catherine Howard, daughter of Lord Edmund Howard, was beheaded by her husband, King Henry VIII. Previously, Miss Howard was engaged to one man, nearly another, before Henry VIII had them both beheaded. The date today is 14th February 1542. We go to Laura now at the cockpit live. Hurrah! Thanks, George. Today this two very rough cops must be having a hard time. Ooh, that must have hurt. Have they too much action?
The nice thing about having an interactive whiteboard is it allows you to show the children's work writ large at the end of the lesson. The children have done their videoing. Traditionally, you'd have to then get the tape out, put it in a big tape, go and get the TV, plug it in, huddle children around the television, and you might be 2 lessons later when the children actually get to see their work. This, the children come along, they grab the cameras, they stick it onto the uploader, and straight away the children can watch what they've achieved at the end of the lesson on a large screen, and that really gives it some impact.
Nikki, that's something every child loves, seeing themselves on the telly, and they get to do it immediately, but do you feel they were really learning anything there?
I think so. I think I was amazed that the children could produce those films, not only do the research but write scripts. So they're using their, creative thinking in terms of the literacy side of things. Create scripts, film and perform, quite, wonderful sketches and things within an hour and 10 minutes. I thought it was really ambitious at the beginning when I sort of first saw that lesson and thought there was no chance they'd be able to produce anything anywhere near decent. And yet I think they did. And I think that they will recall those facts as well, because they'll sort of link that in with having such a fun lesson. So I thought it was a really great way of teaching history.
John, did you think it was creative?
Yeah, I thought it was very creative, and most importantly, they were having a fabulous time. Every one of those kids hugely enjoyed that exercise.
Marilyn, one thing that comes through this discussion and other discussions is the importance parents place on children being happy and enjoying what they learn and remembering. I mean, is there a time for children just to be getting their heads down and working and not necessarily being happy and enjoying it, or should we expect that every minute of the school day?
I think it'd be nice if children enjoyed every minute of the school day, but I guess they'll be more keen on some things than others. I think as long as they feel secure and valued and they enjoy a good proportion of it, that's fine. But I don't think that necessarily contrasts with working hard. I think a lot can be demanded of children. But I'd just like to pick up also on the idea of technology. The clips we've seen might give the impression that all schools have got masses of technology and it's very easy. And in my experience, that's not the case. I mean, we ran a project in a primary school where children built a Science Lines website, and they did their own filming and their own photography. And we actually had to buy the school a television so the children could watch it. So there is a bit of an uneven spread of what's available throughout schools, so I think that needs looking at.
Yeah, so that's something that parents might benefit from watching a programme like this then, John, because they'd be able to see what might be available in another school that isn't in their own.
Yeah, I'd be shocked to hear that there's a school out there without a television. I think it's disgraceful. And, in terms of access to the technology, you can go out and get a camera phone for next to nothing and have that on a PC in no time whatsoever. So there's no excuse for anyone not having access to any technology to go through lessons like that and role play like that. It's accessible to everyone.
Nikki, do you think it's helpful for parents to see what's going on in other schools and maybe then getting an understanding of what their school might do better?
I think it can only help. I think it's, I've learnt an awful lot having watched, the clips that we've seen on the programme today. And it does sort of fill you with enthusiasm, and it makes, perhaps, as parents we can go into our own schools and share some of those things. And it's always good to sort of learn from others and try and pick up from others and try and get the best of the best experience.
And what about this issue of children being led to expect that it all ought to be enjoyable and maybe not, then finding it rather boring when it's just, nose down to the grindstone?
I think it's always very difficult because, if you have a group of people, you're going to have different personality types and different children who learn in different ways. And, going back to art, for example, you'll have some children who absolutely love to draw and express themselves, and some children who find it, frankly, that is a sort of a boring thing for them. So, it's very difficult. I think encouraging children and making them feel involved and valued is the key thing.
OK, well, now we're going to look at another subject, geography, and ask how that too can be taught in a different and more creative way. We're going to Frampton Cotterell Primary School, where teacher Claire Taylor is doing a topic on the weather with her Year 4 class. She works across the curriculum to make the learning more meaningful and incorporates literacy, maths, ICT, and in this extract, dance.
When we're playing the music and when we're dancing, think about, does this reflect weather? Does this reflect the type of weather I'm thinking of? And we need to be discussing our moves. Does this work? Does that work? Does this move link on to the next move nicely? Can we put a move in the middle to link the two moves? Okay, and you do that through discussing and practicing and trying out different moves.
Go round once, and then round the other way, and then still if the long thing isn't on, we can just go like that around.
One of the aims of the group work and the evaluation is to develop pupil skills in peer assessment.
John, was that a geography lesson or a dance lesson, or did it really matter what sort of lesson it was?
Well, I guess that's part of the topic-based approach to education, and as one strand out of many in a way of looking at a topic, I think it's completely legitimate. You know, it was collaborative. Again, the kids were enjoying themselves. There was teamwork in there, you know, and it was a wonderful approach to a weather subject which could be otherwise bone dry.
Nikki, had you forgotten by the end of the clip that it was actually a geography lesson, or did you?
No, I think I did keep thinking about that the whole way through. It was quite interesting to see how she threaded, you know, the theme through all those, you know, different subject areas.
Marilyn, do you think this is going on in lots of schools and parents don't know about it?
It's certainly going on in lots of schools, and I think it's very exciting. The children were really involved and really using their imagination. You could see that they were really into it.
The deputy head in the clip talked about children learning through experience. Do you think that's an important method to use?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it puts flesh on the bones of education rather than being given some data or some facts. Bring that data, experiencing the facts, experience the weather in this case, I think is very important and will live with kids in their memory longer than a page out of a book would.
Do you think that's true, Marilyn, that it can last longer if they do it by experience rather than simply learning it off the blackboard?
Absolutely. I mean, this is active learning. The children are really involved. They're creating it themselves. I think they'll remember it for a long time.
But do you think there's still a tension in the whole education debate between children being taught, which is what some parents apparently want, and children learning for themselves?
Well, children learn in both of those ways, so I think it's really a question of balance, and I think a highly objectives-led curriculum can err on the side of children being taught if the teachers are not as imaginative as they might be. But as I've said before, imaginative teachers can take those objectives and really involve the children in their learning. And to key in from the children's experience, it's obviously helpful to go from where the children are than from some remote place where you think they might be. It's much more meaningful to the children, much more effective.
Well, I think we have to end it there. You can have your say, though, by emailing parents@teachers.tv, and you can find all the information about programmes you've seen and more on our website at Teachers TV. Details at the end of this programme. Thanks to my guests, Nikki, John and Marilyn.
Bye.
Goodbye.
And from myself, Fiona Miller, thanks for joining us, and until next time, goodbye.